many people, I'm very frustrated with kind of the course the United States has taken and has been taking for a long time. You know, these issues that we talk about now aren't new issues.
Mistakes have been made, things need to change, and but no matter what, I'm here to defend this country. And whoever's president, whoever's a congressman, they deserve my respect, and I always offer my respect to them.
Well, I think you should be proud of who you are and respect this country. And I can only say from my years of being in the service and being in numerous countries all over the world, people respect U.S. people. I'm not quite sure why that is sometimes, but they respect us just because we're from this country and we have the freedom that we have, where in a lot of countries, the freedom that we take as granted isn't something they can, you see like in Hong Kong, I mean, they're not allowed to read books. I mean, I know in Red Hook sometimes there are certain books that people might not want, but the freedom of speech is very important, whether you agree or don't agree. You have that option to make your own mind.
My name is Simon Gilhooly. I'm an associate professor of politics at Bard College, and I'm affiliated with the American Studies program as well. So American citizenship, I think, is an interesting case insofar as it is a citizenship that has both kind of had an ideological place as an ideal of inclusivity, that, the notion that's put out there that anyone in the world can come to the United States and become a citizen here. At the same time, though, citizenship in the United States has a long history of being very racially categorized and formed. And you can go back to the Dred Scott decision in 1856, where the Supreme Court ruled African Americans could not be American citizens. So there is, I think there's a profound tension in American citizenship in the way it's positioned, reputation in the world, and the way it's practiced. And so I think it makes it a very kind of tense and stressful case to think about.
Going back when I was in school, I was very proud to be an American. I'm still very proud to be an American, but I think in this day and age, some people just don't have that same feeling. And I think in my opinion, it's a lot to do with the political world that we're in today. All Americans care about people, care about each other. Whether, I would say the biggest part of, like, the veterans, that we care about each other. But I think just the human race, Americans care about each other. I mean, when you see, like, down south in Florida with the hurricane and the damage and the people that are donating money and help and assistance, you don't see that in a lot of countries.
I think when we do think of patriotism, we think of this very American, very WASP kind of approach to patriotism. I think of a baseball game and a hot dog. I don't know, when I think of the word patriotism, I think a lot of people think of those kinds of molds of what is patriotism. It's interesting because I think a lot of people critique people who are hypercritical about the United States, but I don't see an issue being hypercritical. That could be a form of patriotism.
Citizen of the United States, I think that you should understand the laws and follow the laws and learn a little bit of the history and do it the right way, come across the border with the proper paperwork and petitions and whatever it takes, and do it the right way. And by the time you get through that, granted, it's arduous process, you have a sense of pride because you did it and you're in the freest and best country in the world. And you have a voice. That's my belief.
I think it's important that we enjoy the freedom that we have I think people, and not against younger people, but at the moment in our society, I'm not kind of skeptical of things the way things are going right now. And hopefully with this election coming up, some things are kind of straightened out. I know cost of living and things of that nature are just, for some people it's insane, I'm not happy with the influx of people coming into the country without having the venture of finding out who they are, what they are here for. People are just coming in across the border, and I don't know how many have died just trying to get here, but it seems sort of inhumane doing that way.
A lot of the immigrants that came over and still are coming over contribute greatly to the prosperous and innovative aspects of our country.
American immigration policy, I think, has kind of, alongside that, moved in that direction as well. And so we see over the last 10 years, like an increasing kind of violent and aggressive form of enforcement of immigration, especially on the southern border. And we also see a kind of dehumanization of immigrants as a class that, is negating those kind of claims of global citizenship that we talked about before. And I think, unfortunately, there seems to be a populist right abroad in the world who is making political capital from this and who has strong short-term incentives and maybe medium-term incentives to keep pushing and furthering that kind of aggressive anti-immigrant response.
The Democrats did retain control of the Senate, with Kamala Harris's tie-breaking vote. But I think how it shaped up is, going into the election, there was a lot of skepticism about this massive red wave that was going to happen, similar to what happened in 2010, halfway through Obama's first term. And we really didn't see that, which I think just shows the importance that the striking down of Roe had for a lot of voters. When you're looking through exit polls, you can tell that was arguably the biggest driving force to the polls, that and, inflation. So at least the 2022 election was interesting.
I believe in voting. I might not win sometimes, and when I say not win, the person I voted for didn't make it. But no, I think it's very important, and that's why most veterans serve their country, is so that people can vote and have no repercussions on voting. Like in Ukraine, when they were doing the election here more recently, the ballots are almost completed before you vote. So, I think voting is very important. The world seems to be one lie after another lie, and I get so many different flyers from the Democrats and the Republicans and independents, and all they do is bash each other. And it's ridiculous, because if you go back and try to find out who's telling the truth, none of them are telling the truth. So I guess I get scared, personally, on the content of these people that are putting that information out.
It's a very important election time. It's the midterms, when there's a lot of turmoil in this country. And there's basically two political parties in this country, the Democrats and the Republicans, and they're constantly butting heads, blaming each other for whatever. The thing is we all need to come together as Americans and vote for things that are going to improve our country and not make more problems.
Access to the polls is a huge issue. We see state secretaries and we see counties systematically oppress Black and Brown community vote. I live in a predominantly white area in South Florida. Miami Beach, Miami-Dade County is very diverse. My area is, primarily Hasidic Jewish, and it's just primarily white. I have 3 polling locations within maybe 5 walking distances from me. There's literally a polling location, Miami City Ballet, and right directly across the street, the public library. Those are 2 polling locations. And then my high school, which is right over there, is also a polling place. So it makes no sense to have 3 polling locations within 5 minutes of each other.
Should people be expected to participate in elections? I personally, I don't think they should feel obliged to do it. And I think that the pressing problem actually at the moment in the United States is not that people feel too much obligation to be involved, but that for many people, they don't understand the value of being involved. And for a lot of people, the obstacles to kind of participating in the election are being increased. It's becoming harder and harder to vote. So I think from my perspective, the pressure should not be on kind of making people become involved in elections. It should be kind of reducing the barriers to becoming involved in elections and making elections more meaningful so that there's a stronger connection between what people express through their votes and what actually kind of transpires in terms of policy and governmental outcomes.
I just wish more people, like the Patriots pen is for kids in the middle school. And I know we had one the other day. The father called up, and his daughter is going to enter. So I had to drive over. He worked for DOT to give him one of the forms to fill out. So, I mean, that's our youth, and that's kind of way I wouldn't look at like you guys are our youth, and the direction you want to take our country is important.
And I think we're trying to involve the community and the younger generation. You know, like, I want to set up a thing here, talk to a vet night for any high school student that's thinking about joining the military. You know, if he's thinking about joining the Navy, come here and talk to me. I was a Navy guy, you know. So give him some insight. So we're trying to do things like that and foster patriotism in our younger generation.
My generation and the people I interact with and the programs I help with, I see genuine change taking forward. If you're the type of person who is fortunate enough to engage with your community and help raise issues, I think then it's your inherent responsibility to do that. A little comfort knowing that I think our generation, especially Gen Z, is really trying to be very active and vigilant in addressing these systemic issues and working toward creating an America that's genuinely equitable and builds up to what America is trying to be.
And one of the things I'm hopeful about is the degree to which this current young generation, as a generation, kind of rejects right-wing parties. And so that maybe is a kind of a source of optimism that as that generation grows up and becomes more politically powerful, they will kind of change the discourse around these questions. And I think that generation is much more aware and much more engaged with the challenges that are going to emerge from climate change and sees the social problems associated with them with a greater clarity than maybe some of the people who rule power at the moment.